What we're calling a deficiency isn't a deficiency at all. If someone told you that millions of people in this country are walking around with a disrupted hormone system and that the disruption is being managed with the wrong kind of supplement, prescribed by well-meaning doctors following guidelines that weren't designed with their bodies in mind, would you want to know more? And let's talk about it. That's what this episode is about. So, welcome back to Indigenous Intelligence Podcast. I'm Niman Cheokine. In the last episode, I talked about why I asked Parliament a question about vitamin D and melanin and what happened when they actually answered it. If you haven't heard that one, it's worth going back to. But this episode stands on its own. Because what I want to do today is slow right down and explain the science in plain language so that by the end of this, you understand exactly what the problem is, why the name we've been given for it is misleading, and why that matters more than it might seem. So let me just first say I'm not a scientist. What I am is someone who followed the question all the way down, and what I found at the bottom changed how I understand my own body, my own history, and the bodies of the people I love. So let's break it down. Let's get into it. The phrase vitamin D deficiency is everywhere. It's on leaflets, it's on TikTok, it's on social media. You know, health services are talking about it, the NHS is talking about it. It's in the NHS guidelines. It's the thing your doctor checks for when you go in feeling tired in February. And the name does something subtle but powerful. It tells you that something is missing from what you're eating. A deficiency like iron deficiency or B12 deficiency is usually a dietary problem. You're not getting enough of something. Take a supplement, problem solved. But here's what I've come to understand. Vitamin D, or more precisely the active form of it that your body actually uses, is not a vitamin at all. It's a hormone. It's called calcitriol. And your body doesn't primarily get it from food. It makes it. And it makes it from the sun. So when the system breaks down, when your body isn't producing enough calcitriol, what you have isn't a dietary deficiency. What you have is a disruption to your endocrine system. That's the system that produces and regulates your hormones. Those are two different things. One points you toward food and supplements. The other points you towards asking, why is the production system disrupted in the first place? And when you ask that question, that's where it gets interesting. So let me walk you through the process. Bear with me. It's 3 steps. It's worth it. So the first step is when the sunlight hits your skin. Now, specifically UVB radiation from the sun interacts with a compound in your skin called number 7 dehydrocholesterol. And from that interaction, your skin produces something called cholecalciferol. That's what most people mean when they say vitamin D3. In the second stage, the cholecalciferol travels through your liver. The liver converts it into something called calcitriol. That's 25-hydroxyvitamin D, the thing that they measure in your blood when you get a vitamin test. And then that travels to your kidneys, the calcitriol, and the kidneys convert that into calcitriol, the active hormone, the actual thing that does the work. And calcitriol does a remarkable amount of work. It regulates calcium absorption. It plays a role in immune function, cardiovascular health, mood regulations. And there's a growing body of evidence linking inadequate calcitriol to outcomes ranging from bone disease and rickets in children all the way to autoimmune conditions, cancer risk, and outcomes in pregnancy. 3 steps: skin, liver, and kidneys. And the whole cascade starts with one thing: sunlight on your skin. So now here's a part that I think is still not widely enough understood. Melanin is the pigment that gives skin its color. And melanin is extraordinary. It's a natural UV filter. It protects the DNA in your skin cells from damage caused by UV radiation. The more melanin you have, the more protection you have. That's why people whose ancestors evolved near the equator like us, where UV radiation is intense year-round, develop higher concentrations of melanin over thousands of years. It was a protective. It was an advantage. But, and this is the thing, that same UV filtering property of melanin also means that melanin-rich skin requires significantly more UV exposure to produce the same amount of calcitriol as lighter skin. The studies that I've seen suggest that people with darker skin tones may need anywhere from 3 to 6 times more sun exposure to produce the same amount of vitamin D3 as people with lighter skin tones, under the same conditions. 3 to 6 times more. In Ghana, in Nigeria, in Jamaica, near the equator, where the sun is high and UV is strong, this isn't a problem. The sun provides more than enough. The biology is in its right environment. But move that same biology to Birmingham or to Manchester or to Wokingham, where I live, where the sun is lower, where UVB levels from October to April are often too weak to trigger synthesis at all, regardless of how long you stand outside, and the system can't keep up. This isn't a diet problem. This is an evolutionary mismatch, a body built for one latitude living at another. I want to share some numbers because I think numbers make it real. So a 2026 paper in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition by a team at Newcastle University found that 72% of ethnic minority adults with darker skin in northern Britain had insufficient vitamin D year-round, not just in the winter, all year round. UK Biobank data, one of the largest health data sets in the world, shows that 57.2% of Asian Britons and 38.5% of Black Britons had insufficient vitamin D levels in winter and spring. Compare that to 17% of white Britons. 83% of the cases of rickets in this country occur in Black children. These are not numbers that point to a dietary gap that can be solved by eating more oily fish. These are numbers that point to a systemic physiological mismatch, one that current guidelines haven't adequately addressed. And the Endocrine Society, one of the leading medical bodies in the world on hormones, actually supports describing this as an endocrine disruption rather than a dietary deficiency. The framing I'm using isn't fringe. It's simply not the one that's made into the GP leaflet yet. I want to flag something here that I find generally troubling, and I think it deserves much more attention. If you've been to a doctor in any country in the Northern Hemisphere, I mean here in the UK, and you've been told that you have a vitamin D deficiency, there's a reasonable chance you were prescribed vitamin D2. It's called ergocalciferol. It's plant-derived, it's cheap, and it's been the standard prescription from the NHS for many years. But here is what I've come to understand. There is evidence, published, peer-reviewed evidence, that vitamin D2 supplementation can actually decrease your body levels of vitamin D3. Not just fail to raise D3, but actively decrease it. The reason has to do with how the liver processes these compounds. D2 and D3 compete for the same metabolic pathway. When the liver is busy converting D2 in its calcitriol equivalent, it may do so at the expense of the D3 pathway. So you go to your doctor. You report fatigue, low mood, maybe bone pain, and they test your vitamin D. Then they prescribe you a supplement. You take it. And then depending on what that supplement is and how your body responds, you may be no better off and possibly be worse. So let me be clear. I'm not telling anyone to stop taking prescribed medication. That's a conversation for you and your doctor. That's on you. What I am saying is that this is worth knowing about. It's worth asking about. You are allowed to ask your doctor, is this D2 or D3? And if it's D2, you might just want to ask why. So let me just step back for a moment and tell you why this matters personally to me. So I'm Ghana. My family comes from Gamashi in Accra. We call it Jamestown. It's one of the oldest parts of Accra, right on the coast. And we've been living there for a long time. And we have an astronomical tradition, a system for tracking the sky, reconciling lunar and solar observations, and calibrating the planting and harvest seasons called Tekomo. So I've been researching whether the geodetic position of Tema, which is almost exactly at latitude 0 and longitude 0, was known to the Ghana people long before European cartography arrived, whether it was encoded in their ceremonial traditions and their naming practices. Now, I'm not trying to go down a rabbit hole today. I'll do an episode on that. But just to say, like, when I look at the science of melanin and the sunlight, I don't see a medical anomaly. I see an evolutionary story. I see people whose biology was calibrated for a specific place on this earth, who were then dispersed through slavery, through colonialism, through migration to places where that calibration no longer functioned as designed. The inadequate calcitriol synthesis that we're calling vitamin D deficiency among Blacks and South Asian communities in this country is in part a long shadow of that history. It's not a random mismatch. It maps onto routes of transatlantic slave trade and the geography of post-colonial migration. That's why I named this practice indigenous intelligence, not because I think Western medicine has nothing to offer, but because I think when you understand where your body comes from, you understand it differently. You ask different questions, you demand different answers. So let me just wrap this up with something actionable, because it's not just about a history lesson. If you have darker skin and you live at a northern latitude in the UK and northern Canada, in the US, Europe, here's a suggestion worth thinking about. First, sunlight and grounding. In the summer months from roughly April to September in the UK, make time. And in the US and in Europe, make time for direct unfiltered sunlight on as much of your skin as you're comfortable to expose. Early mornings or late afternoons when UVB is gentler, 15 to 30 minutes when you can. You know, your skin needs that direct contact. Sunscreen, which is important, also reduces the synthesis, so it's a balance, but prioritize the sun. Number 2, know that supplements you're taking. If you're supplementing, and for many of us in northern latitude, supplementing makes sense, make sure you're taking D3, not D2. And take it with K2 if you can. There's evidence they work together. Thirdly, consider your food. Vitamin D biofortification is a growing area of research. There are scientists right now working on food-based solutions, including gene-edited tomatoes, specifically bred to contain vitamin D. I've spoken with a researcher leading that work. It's some pretty serious science, and it may become part of the answer. And fourth, and perhaps most importantly, know your number. Get tested. Ask your GP for a 25-hydroxy vitamin D test. Know where you stand. Don't just take someone's word for it and that you're probably fine. So that's the calcitriol reframe. It's not a deficiency. It's not a disruption. It's not a diet problem. It's an evolutionary mismatch. It's not coincidence. It's a pattern that once you see, you can unsee. And that's what I'm going through now. So if this episode was useful to you, share it with someone you know who thinks needs to hear it. And that's generally how this work spreads. So if you want to go deeper, whether that's with the parliamentary work, the grounded sessions, I run Saturday morning retreats in Wokingham. I'm organizing one in Ghana coming up in August. Definitely join me. So my name is Niman Chelkain. Thank you for listening.